David Futransky, I'm the Director of Institutional Advancement at ETHS. And a member of the class of 1969. So with some classmates who are here tonight, we recently celebrated our 50th reunion from here. What we're going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about the program, a little bit about the award. We're going to have one speaker, and then we'll have time for some dinner. We'll then have a couple more speakers. They'll clear the plates off, and we'll go through the rest of our speakers, and hopefully we will be done around 10:30 or 11. Depends on how long I let the superintendent talk. First of all, I want to welcome our ETHS administrators who are in the room. Dr. Witherspoon's over here. If the others would just stand up for a second and we could welcome them. Pete Davis, Pete Robinson, Robert Zimmerman. So we have two assistant principals and an assistant superintendent. Our ETHS school board members who are present, they would stand for a second so we could welcome all of them. Our Alumni Association board members who are here tonight. Our members of the Distinguished Alumni Award Committee who are here. Our members of the ETHS Foundation Board. This is the 17th year of our Distinguished Alumni Awards. One gentleman who is here who was in on the founding of this is John Donahue. John, where are you? There you are. Partner in crime was unable to be with us tonight, but we wouldn't be doing this without John's leadership and vision and Bob's leadership and vision to make this happen. We have a very interesting committee that works on this whole process. It includes current and former members of our faculty and staff. It includes students. It includes community leaders and alumni. And the group spends a lot of time this summer reading through many, many files of people who've been nominated, and then turns around and after 3 meetings comes down to a list of people to honor. This year we have 6 people who were selected and 1 person who was selected last year who wasn't able to attend who we're honoring this year. We couldn't do any of this without the key leadership and support of people who work in the ETHS Foundation office and the alumni office under institutional advancement. So I want you to join me in thanking Joanne Birchie, the Executive Director of the ETHS Foundation. And Nicole Marks, who is the person who really makes all the data flow for us, who keeps track of everybody. She's how we know where you are. So without Nicole, we wouldn't be able to do any of this. Thank you, Nicole. I have one request for you from Nutrition Services, which is, as they're clearing things, make sure to keep one of your forks for dessert. So, before we get started with our student host introducing some of our honorees, I'm going to introduce to you Dr. Eric Witherspoon.
Well, thank you, David, and thank you for all that you've put in to make this possible. We really appreciate it. So, distinguished guests, this is the last time you're going to have to listen to it this week, but it's a great day to be alive. And it's so great to have you here today. I want to, first of all, share with everybody in the room who did not have an opportunity to be there this morning, the convocation that we had this morning where the seniors get to meet and learn about and listen to the distinguished alums. I've been going to them now for 14 years, and they don't get any better than this morning. It was just terrific. You're going to get to meet all of them this evening, and you're going to get to meet all the students who introduced them this morning. And I think after you get the full array this evening, you're going to realize why I am so excited about how that went. I have been talking with seniors all day long, and I cannot tell you how many of them expressed to me how much they appreciated this morning's convocation, how much it meant to them, and how they really felt that each of you managed to speak to them. And yes, you distinguished yourselves even as students here, but we have to remember what it's like to be a teenager. And to realize that our teenagers were so struck by and so appreciative of those comments this morning, I think really speaks highly of all of you. For all of you who were not there this morning, they really did share some insights with our students, and it was really a very spectacular moment. I do want to point out that David this morning mentioned that there are about 80,000 graduates of Evanston Township High School, about 50,000 on our current active list. At least we're all living long. And I want to point that out for this reason. It is no small achievement to be honored as a distinguished alum of Evanston Township High School. First of all, it's such a small number of the 80,000 or the 50,000 or whatever number you want. How about the 3,700 that will graduate, or not graduate, that are currently in the school this year, and the nearly 1,000 who will graduate this spring. They're joining the ranks of some amazing and very accomplished people. And to be honored as a distinguished alum, as one of those who is held up as an example and as somebody who has achieved and models for the rest of us, is quite an honor. And I'll just point out this much because I don't want you to leave after this evening and not realize this is still ranked, because many of you, the time you were here, I know you knew the legacy of this school. This is still ranked by the Washington Post and U.S. News and World Reports in the top 1% to 2% of every high school. So congratulations, we're going to have a wonderful evening. And kicking off, I'm going to introduce Connor. I don't see where you're sitting. There we go. Connor Falls is going to come up here and kick it off and introduce our first distinguished alum that we'll have an opportunity to hear from. Connor, go on up. Do we look alike?
Hello everyone, my name is Connor Falls and I am a senior at ETHS. I have the honor of introducing Dr. Lemke. Anna Lemke was born in Phoenix, Arizona, but was raised in Evanston from second grade. Like all of us, she attended ETHS. While in high school, Dr. Lemke tried her hand in many activities. Initially, she joined the cross-country team, but quickly learned that this was not her thing. Slowly, she gravitated towards drama, sciences, and orchestra. Dr. Lemke graduated from Evanston Township in 1985, is being honored tonight as a distinguished ETHS alumni for the impressive life she has leading. After high school, she received her BA in Humanities from Yale University and her MD from Stanford University, where she also completed her residency in psychiatry and fellowship in mental disorder. Although this already is very impressive, I have only just begun to touch upon her academic accomplishments. In 2016, she published her best-selling book on prescription drug crisis, Drug Dealer MD, How Doctors Were Duped, Patients Got Hooked, and Why It's So Hard to Stop. The book has made waves within her respective field and impacted policymakers and legislators across the nation. This is only a small portion of what she has accomplished, but sadly, we do not have time to list everything. ETHS is proud to say that she is one of our alumni, and I couldn't think of anyone more deserving to be selected as one of this year's Distinguished Alumni. It's been an honor to learn all about her, and without further ado, please welcome Dr. Lund.
Well, I'm incredibly honored to be here tonight. This has been unexpectedly a really delightful experience for me. I can't exactly put my finger on why, but it's one of those experiences that I'm going to hold with me my entire life and look back very, very fondly. I am so impressed with ETHS. When I look around, I see the foundational strength still there, but the way that in the last 30 plus years it's been improved upon is really incredible to me. I kind of wish I could go back and do high school again and do it better and enjoy it more. That would be really nice. I am so lucky to have here tonight some of my very beloved teachers, Mr. Dunn and Dr. McBoy. And I would not be here without them. And when I look back at why they meant so much to me, it's really the intangibles. They were both incredibly kind in addition to being fabulous teachers. So I just want to express my gratitude to both of you. I think in many student interactions, you've changed the world, so thank you. I also want to thank my family and friends who turned out tonight in wonderful numbers. We have the Johnsons here. My parents were immigrants, and so our friends really meant the world to us. They really were family. And my very best friend, Laura Nuremberg, and my very good friend, Angie Huckman, and my very good friend, Patrick Hughes. So just really wonderful people that I'm just so grateful to see all of you and to have you here and help me celebrate this moment. Today was incredible because I got to meet wonderful students like Connor, what a delightful young man, and also I had this amazing interaction in the afternoon where I went to the psychology classes, and when I was told that I was going to go to the psychology class, I figured I would get to sort of sit in the background and observe how teaching is done now at ETHS, only to arrive in the auditorium and discover that I was the class. So I was like, okay. So what I did, and this was at the prompting of Mr. Walsh, who teaches the class and is a beloved teacher here, he said, why don't you tell them what you do in your work every day? And I thought, well, that's a great idea. That's what I'll do. So I said to the kids, you know, I became a psychiatrist with no intention at all of treating addiction. In fact, I didn't want to have anything to do with those patients. And there are lots of reasons for that, not the least of which I didn't really learn anything about addiction in medical school because they didn't teach it. But what I discovered pretty quickly was that a lot of my patients were using drugs and alcohol and were not going to get better unless I started asking them about it. So, and I don't have time to share with you one particular very moving anecdote, but it was basically a patient that I harmed because I was ignoring addiction. We talked about everything under the sun, this patient and I, every conversation she had had with her mother, but I never asked her about drugs and alcohol. So I started asking my patients, and what I discovered is that patients were happy and willing to talk about their drug and alcohol problems, and that I loved treating these patients. Not only did they get better, but they transformed the lives of the people around them. One of the myths out there is that people with addiction can't get better, and it's not true. They can, and treatment works. And when we in the healthcare system take on the responsibility of treating this population, people have good outcomes. The other thing that I discovered is that a lot of my patients in the early 2000s were addicted to the pills that their doctors were prescribing, including pills that I was prescribing, things like Xanax, Ativan, Klonopin. And that was when I had my kind of second awakening, the realization that, gosh, we were doing folks a lot of harm because we didn't understand addiction, we didn't understand the addictive potential of the very same pills that we were prescribing. And that kind of led me on a sort of crusade to try to figure out how we could stop harming our patients out of ignorance, and also just learn to use these important pills like opioids and benzos and stimulants more judiciously so that our patients will not get addicted. I then talk to the students about what I do when a teenager comes and sees me, and how I'm seeing so many cases now of teenagers who are addicted to cannabis, teenagers addicted to video games, teenagers addicted to really hard drugs, and they don't want to be there when they come see me, and their parents are bringing them in. So my job is really to convince them to engage in a kind of experiment. And what I say to my patients is, you know, I really hear you that the cannabis is like helping your anxiety and helping your depression. I hear you say that, but I want to ask you to try something. Try, if you're willing, to not use anything for 4 weeks. In those first 2 weeks, you're going to feel a whole lot worse because you're going to experience the subtle and universal symptoms of withdrawal from any addictive substance. It's irritability, anxiety, depression, and insomnia. But if you can get through those first 2 weeks, in those second 2 weeks, what you might actually discover is that you're feeling better. So the thing that happens when we're in the middle of an addictive process is we don't see the connection between our substance use and the bad things that are happening in our lives. But if we can stop for 4 weeks, get our brains back, and reset our pleasure-pain threshold, then we can look back and more objectively see the link between our substance use and the things in our life that are not good and that we want to change. So what I told the students is, there's a lot of reluctance initially when I see these kids. They're like, no, Dr. Lemke, that's not right. My weed is totally the only thing that works for my anxiety. But, you know, I just keep working at it and keep working at it. And finally, when they're willing to engage in that experiment, it is so exciting. Because I see a lot of kids who come back after 4 weeks, and they come in and say, Dr. Lemke, you're not going to believe this. But it was just like you said. Those first 2 weeks were terrible, but I'm actually feeling a lot less pain than I was before. Also, I'm getting a lot more done, and I'm hanging out with people, and I'm really bored, so I'm actually talking to my parents, and they're happier. And so it's this wonderful feed-forward loop that then I can build on going forward. Because almost invariably, they want to go back and use, but now they have data, and they can say, the way that I was using before is not the way that I want to use it going forward. That then led with the students today to a great discussion about smartphones and video game addiction and how that's all kind of the same basic process. And then I had probably one of the most moving experiences that I certainly have had in my professional life. And that was that 2 students came up to me afterwards and asked to speak to me confidentially. And they told me about their struggles with addiction. And one of them talked about how she actually transferred here to ETHS from another school because she was struggling with a cannabis addiction. And she and her mom decided that she needed to be in a new place, in a new setting, and how she had come here and how things were so much better in her life. And that made me so proud of her and also of ETHS. And then the other student came up to me and told me that he's really in the middle of a very serious addiction, and could I help him? And I was thrilled to be able to walk him over to ETHS's brand new Student Health Center, where I walked him in and I found the nurse on duty, and I said to him, here's a kid and he needs help and he's terrified his parents are going to find out. Can you offer him confidential mental health treatment? And that nurse, whose name I don't know, but please somebody get back to her and tell her she's a saint. She said, I will see him in just a few moments and everything will be confidential and we can get you help. And I thought, ETHS is an amazing place. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Anna and Connor. Please enjoy your salad course, and we will continue the program in a few minutes. Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt your dinner, but we have a lot of speakers to go tonight, and keep us moving so that we can get the students home before it's too late for them to do their homework, because their teachers would be very mad at me tomorrow. First of all, would you join me in thanking Kim Minestra and Kelly Diaz and our entire nutrition services team that is here, that's helped us tonight. Not only are they doing an amazing job for us tonight, but they do it every day for this school. And they are one of the groups that this year was honored by Those Who Excel, part of the Illinois State Board of Education recognition. So our nutrition services team, we appreciate all you do, particularly this meal. Thank you. We're gonna go on with our next couple of speeches while you're eating. We'll take a break in a little while so that they can clear the plates, and they'll be able to, for the most part, head home this evening. If you do need a beverage other than the water that's on the table, there are soft drinks and coffee in the hallway. The washrooms are also down the hallway if you need to head that way. And while I didn't introduce John Donahue before, John is one of 2 winners of the ETHS Superintendent's Award, people who have given back to the Alumni Association, to the foundation over the years. And the other winner is also here. Jim Osira is back in that corner. Jim spent a long time on both alumni and foundation boards. And the leadership of these 2 guys have helped us to do the things we do together. Okay. I am going to introduce one of our students who will introduce our next speaker. So Moran, I know you're right here in front of me. Moran Vernier is going to take over from me.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is Moran Vernier. I'm a senior here. And today I have the pleasure of introducing Morrison Robinson Jr., or known as Dino. Through his time here, he participated in marching band, concert band, wrestling team, and Yamo stage crew. Through the help of impactful teachers and the numerous resources here at ETHS, Dino was able to figure out his passion for graphic design and graduated in 1985 with history honors. Dino went on to Loyola Chicago University, majoring in communication design and minoring in African American studies. He was able to obtain an internship every year, become a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated Theta chapter, and graduate with top honors in his department. He continued his passion for graphic design and history, and in 2002, he established the Shorefront Legacy Center, a nonprofit that documents the Black experience along the Chicago North Shore area. He wanted to build a center that showed the impact of Black people in their own community, a place where people can do extensive research on Black residents in the North Shore area. Through his work, he has been able to travel to elite institutions like UCLA and the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture to discuss his permanent archive and give presentations. He has also been recognized by the NAACP and has received a key to the city of Evanston. During my time with Dino, I learned that he started off as a shy new kid from Glenview, but his time here matured him and prepared him for the real world. I couldn't help but resonate with Dino's story, and I hope you all do too. Thank you.
Thank you, Moran. She was wonderful today with me today, being the best tour guide I've ever had in this high school. I think I walked every single floor in every department. I had some requests, but she just was right on point. Let's do this. It's great to be a wild kid. It's great to be surrounded by wild kids. And what's interesting about coming from this high school is that no matter where you go in this country, in many cases around this world, you're going to run into a fellow kid. I remember working in one place here in Skokie and sitting down doing some reporting, Colleague to the right of me and colleague to the left of me were all ETHS grads. Class of 84, class of 85, me, class of 86. We bonded immediately. So no matter where you go as a kid, you always have that bond that happens instantaneously. One of the interesting takeaways I have in this high school is the community of support. And for me, it began in my household. My mother and father sitting back there, my brother, class of 1990, my daughter, class of 2018. So a legacy here that I'm really proud of. And seeing how the school has changed in many ways to today's technology, to today's ideas, but how much of it has stayed the same too with the engagement that staff has here with students. And I had that same experience when I was here. I remember my freshman year where I needed to change my counselor. And I went home and said, Daddy, no, I think I need a new counselor. The very next day I had a new one, Miss Lenny Krim Bearfield. And she shaped my 4 years at the school. She made sure I was involved in anything that I was interested in. Maybe get involved in organizations that ship me to places for our off-campus experiences, and help prepare me for a world in advertising. It was fast-paced. And a lot of things that happened in the school helped train me for that. 5-minute passing periods. Talk about time management and organization. And we didn't have Chromebooks now like the students have now. We had thick textbooks for every single class. A good 50-pound pack on your back. But you had to be quick with your combination. Run down the hall from gym, still dripping wet from the swimming pool. Spin left, spin right, spin left. Boom, got your books organized. Throw it in the next bag. Run upstairs to the 3rd floor. Clear across the other side of the school. I was fit. I had asthma too. Walking up those stairs, wheezing, inhaler. Well, I actually had the liquid, so that didn't really help much. But it kept me fit. I was ready for whatever put me on my path. I was also in Yamo stage crew, and my job was to build the staircase that led up to the control booth. So if anybody got injured, I'm sorry. Steps I stayed away from after that. I knew carpentry was not going to be my skill set after that. Marching band, where I challenged myself to be drum major. And did not get it the first year, did not get it the second year, no problem, but I had style. And I taught the other drum majors that had that position, that style. And I think, Laura, I think you're in this crowd here, remember that? You were a drum major. You weren't drum major? I thought you were. I think you tried out, didn't you? I think you did. But just me being a short kid, trying to try out for drum major, the band loved it, but it's like, look, we can't find a partner that has your skills. That's your height. So I said, it's okay, we'll just teach this and keep going. So take your talents and use them wisely. So that's some other lessons I've learned from this. Moving on with, my career and my choice of avocation with Shorefront. What takeaway I had from this school was about this policy that I have in controlling your narrative. And the school kind of helped design you and help guide you in ways in which you can find your voice, find your cause, and express that cause and defend that cause on a bigger crowd, and challenge what I would at the time call the status quo and mix it up. Set new policy, set new ways of doing things, thinking outside the box. And we were able to do that with Shorefront, where most of my colleagues who are in archiving said, well, here are the steps you do. You write your bylaws and your policies and look for institutions that have like things. I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. We're not going to do that. What we're going to do is go out there in the community and talk to people, engage, share, learn, and incorporate their skill sets, because they are the professionals in this community. And it's engaged in this important documentation of archiving an important community in this North Shore. And that put Shorefront on the map, not just locally, but on a national level, where we became a model for other independent-based archival institutions. And this is great because now we're in competition, well, it's not great, but a challenge, to write grants that were in competition with major institutions like Northwestern University, the Schomburg, the Smithsonian, for those same grant pools, and actually winning them. And able to create a permanent home where students, and I've engaged with the students here at ETHS, who are wonderful. We had a current senior at Evanston Township, process the history, archival history of Ebenezer AME Church. Now, understand the size of this collection. This is something that mostly graduate students will work on. We had 3 boxes, and these boxes were like the size of paper boxes that you get or office storage boxes. We had 3 that were already processed. She had to unpack that and incorporate the new stuff, which accumulated to 15 boxes. Labeled them, created a new finding aid, and made it ready, all within 2.5 months. So that's the caliber of students that this school is producing. And the level of work that I see coming out of these students are college level. And that is really evident as we see when we're working with student bases here. So I'm proud to be an alum of ETHS. And I'm proud to be able to give back to the students that come through ETHS. So thank you. I hope that what you do in your life and where you go in your life, that you're going to be a change maker. And Evanston has produced a lot of leaders that made significant changes throughout this nation. Go kids.
Thank you, Dino and Moran. Our next student is our junior on the committee this year. Connor was our junior last year. We always, and one of the things that the legacies of John Donahue was we always put a junior on the committee so that we have somebody who can carry over into their senior year, who can give us 2 years of service, but who becomes a leader in the committee in their senior year. Soren stepped up and was a leader this year as a junior, and I know I'm looking for great things from him next year too. Soren Dorr will introduce our next honoree.
Hello, I'm Soren Dorr. I'm a junior here. First I wanted to say, I don't have asthma, but I still feel it going up the stairs some days. You know, some of those jumps are a little rough. I also wanted to say I had a lot of fun today touring with Tiethoff around the building. Francis Tiethoff, who I'm introducing today. And I think it was an interesting experience because when I was touring the building, showing off all the new places like the planetarium, and all the planetarium, the greenhouse, all the renovations, you know, just a sense of pride for what the school is. And it's a very unique and interesting experience, and I really valued it. So I'm honored of introducing Francis Tiethoff over here. And she graduated in 1962 during a time, as Ms. Tiethoff puts it, when ETHS was concerned with the USSR and Sputnik, doing well on the SAT, and as always, beating New Trier. Ms. Tiethoff went on to become the principal harpist in the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra for over 40 years. Frances began playing harp in her sophomore year at ETHS, and after a few months, she was already playing in the Winter Orchestra concert. One thing that became clear to me when talking to Frances was how much she valued the opportunities in Evanston. At ETHS, she found chances to interact with people that had the same interests as her. For her is when she would make friends, accompanying soloists in the community that came from playing in an orchestra. We can all find these places where we can bond over commitment to excellence. She also connected to her math classes and particularly enjoyed trigonometry. While trigonometry, like many, is not everybody's favorite, Ms. Tiethoff points out how math, music, countless other fields are all connected. During her time with the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra, she noticed pay discrepancies between men and women in similar positions. She filed a complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commissions, and they agreed with what she saw. The case was published and made public, which set a precedent for other symphonies. And while looking out, thank you. That's all. And now this is Francis Tiethoff.
Well, this has been an extraordinary day, and I've really enjoyed my time with Soren. There were a few surprises when he took me into the TV studio and interviewed me, and I really didn't know that was going to happen, but it's been really fantastic. And so thank you, Soren, and thank you to everybody who has made this possible. I think this is a wonderful thing, and I'm thrilled and honored. And it's so interesting to be back here. I've been gone really almost 57 years because I left and went to school on the East Coast, and then I got the job in the St. Louis Symphony. So I have just one of the pleasures of this award is to think back and remember these times in Evanston and the terrific public schools, the great university, the cultural riches of Chicago, so close, and the beautiful lakefront, and I miss that. But the thing I miss the most of all, of course, is my parents, because my parents were wonderful painters, and we were surrounded by art and music growing up. So it's not surprising that my brother and sister and I are all involved in the practice or preservation of the arts. I started taking piano lessons when I was a kid, and by junior high I was accompanying violinists and cellists at their lessons after school. I was very shy and somewhat uncomfortable socially during high school, so I liked to play music because it was a wonderful way to connect with people and to express myself. And there were really wonderful opportunities at ETHS. I started studying harp my sophomore year because a really great harpist had moved to Evanston. And I took it up just for the summer, but it turned out that I played for the rest, the rest is history, sort of. And this teacher was just wonderful. She's 94 years old, and she lives in Florida, and we still talk on the phone and visit each other once in a while, so I love having that connection to that period. And this morning I told about this experience, my first experience at high school playing the harp, because she and some other teachers decided that I would play the Waltz of the Flowers harp cadenza from the Nutcracker and a solo harp version of Silent Night on the Christmas program. And I had only played for a couple of months, maybe 4 months, but they thought, these teachers thought I could do it, and so I practiced like crazy, and I learned these pieces, and I didn't have all that much confidence, though, and as a matter of fact, I was terrified. And nobody had mentioned that when I was on stage, there would be a spotlight on me. So anyway, I somehow survived that experience, but when I got home, I had just been so tense that I just burst into tears. And that was a trial by fire, and it was the first of many. So I had great performance opportunities here. I got to play in the orchestra. I accompanied the chorus in the Ceremony of Carols, which is really one of the big pieces for harpists to learn, because every Christmas you get calls to play this piece. And I played in the concert band in my uniform, and I had a hat too, and so it was really great fun. And so anyway, the other subject I loved was math, particularly with Mr. Cady. He took us all outside with surveying instruments to determine the height of the flagpole on top of the school. So the first thing I did this morning was look to see if the flagpole was still there, and it was. So he made it a great adventure. And I was pretty good at math, and so my dad used to say to me that I had the 3 M's that go together: math, music, and migraine headaches. So then I went to the East Coast. I went to Juilliard and Curtis, and in New York I played in the American Symphony Orchestra under Leopold Stokowski. If you've seen the movie Fantasia, he's the conductor in that movie, and he famously shakes the hand of Mickey Mouse. So I played in the St. Louis Orchestra for 42 years as principal harp, starting in 1970, and I've had a lot of fun. I mean, it's very, very hard work too. I mean, I've done a lot of recording with them, and got nominated for a Grammy Award, and got to go to the Grammys in Los Angeles, but didn't win. So, but it was exciting. And got to do a lot of touring. I liked touring too, and luckily my husband is a scientist, so he was able to arrange his schedule so that he could stay home when I was away, and my parents helped me out a lot too with our 2 kids. So I was telling the kids this morning how many things I've learned. It's taught me discipline and to be much more focused. And when I was on the job, I learned quite a few things that I hadn't been taught in any school. For instance, negotiating and collective bargaining. And I learned about sex discrimination in salary. And I worked to correct some of these, that thing. I worked on that. And I could go on and talk about the benefits of music education and many other things, but I just want to say that the thrilling power and emotion that music can convey is still kind of miraculous to me. So since my retirement, I've reconnected with some of my friends from Evanston High School, which has been just delightful. And it's been very meaningful because they knew my parents, they knew my family, and they knew me at another time in my life, and it's been very meaningful. And I'm thrilled that some of them are here tonight, and I've been very fortunate to have a life in music and to make a living in music too, which is the more difficult thing. So I am very grateful for this, and I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Francis. We did somewhat ambush Francis into the TV studio. None of our music classes take place in the afternoon. They're all in the morning. So while other people were able to go visit classes in their field, we didn't have classes that she could go right into. Instead, we were able to ask her to help record some things we could show to music classes and music students in the future about what it's like to become a professional musician. We're going to take a very short break, let the nutrition services staff clear the things from the table. If you need a drink or need to use the washroom, we're going to take about 5 minutes, and then we'll start up the program again and go all the way through. Thank you. So our next student speaker is Aldrich Martinez-Olson. Aldrich?
Hello everyone, my name is Aldrich Martinez-Olson, and I'm a senior here at Evanston. Today, I'd like to introduce you to Marty Cohen, an alumni from the class of 1969. Like most teenagers, Marty Cohen wasn't sure what he wanted to do after high school. He was a good student, but not exceptional. His interests outside of school, such as athletics, public speaking, and leadership, took precedence over his schoolwork, something that many students experience today. In the tumultuous late 60s, he became greatly involved in the movement against the Vietnam War. During his time at Washington University, he discovered one of his true passions, pottery. He started a pottery studio in Chicago called Little Street Art Center, which is still successful after 44 years. He did what a lot of us dream to do. He made a career out of something he loved, but would not usually be profitable. After 10 years at Little Street, he started working for many political candidates, including Harold Washington. His love for activism and advocacy led him to his job at the Citizens Utility Board, an organization that advocates for low cost and clean energy. Later in his career, he was appointed as chairman of the Illinois Commerce Commission. He still does utility work after 35 years. I'm sure we've all heard of the phrase, follow your dreams. Well, Marty Cohen was able to turn his phrase into reality. For a student with many passions who was unsure how to make them viable, he gave me hope that things would fall into place. That is why I am proud to introduce him today. Marty Cohen.
Thank you, Aldrich. What an extraordinary, memorable day it was today at ETHS, the first day I've spent here in more than 50 years. I walked in, my first impression when I saw the people in the hallway was, how young are these people? Then I realized the people I was looking at were teachers. So 69 is a long time ago. So I do want to start with a heartfelt thank you for this award, and thanks to whomever anonymously nominated me for it. I asked all my friends from ETHS, and I still have some, including Ron, who's here today. I asked my friends whether they put me up as a distinguished alumnus, and they all said pretty much the same thing. Why the hell would I nominate you? I'm not sure I deserve this award, but I really am thrilled to receive it. And frankly, I don't know who would have been more surprised back in '69 that I would get this award, my parents or my teachers. I did have my ups and downs at ETHS. I was a bit of a procrastinator and a goof-off, and more interested in sports and extracurricular activities and girls than in academics. But somehow I got an extraordinary and well-rounded education, for which I am forever grateful. This morning we all made brief presentations at the senior assembly, and I told the kids a couple of quick stories that I remember from my days at ETHS that have stuck with me for all these years. I'm going to repeat them. The first was my experience on the sophomore wrestling team. Each week we would have a wrestle-off to see who would compete in the Saturday meets against the other schools. Ron was a varsity wrestler, not I. But on the sophomore team, we had a wrestle-off every week. And at my size, I was in the 133-pound class. There was a great wrestler who I couldn't beat. And I was no match for the guy at 138 either. And at 145, we had a terrific wrestler. But at 154, there was a roly-poly guy who was about my size, and I could beat him. So I wrestled 3 weight classes above my weight. And I am pretty sure that I set a school record for consecutive losses by pin in the first round. I'm not sure if they've got records of that, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened. So I asked one of my daughters, one of my 3 daughters, the one who's not here this evening, if she could help me with interpreting this experience for the young people I was speaking to today, and I thought it was some message about perseverance in the face of long odds, and you can do it. And she said, "Dad, the lesson is don't be stupid." So the second story I told the kids today was about my college applications. I applied to all these schools with 1-syllable names from the East Coast: Tufts, Brown, anyway, a bunch of them. Among the schools I applied to was Yale. I didn't get into those schools, by the way. I never visited any colleges. People just didn't do that then. At least nobody I knew did. But Yale had alumni, I think they were alumni, people that would come to your house and talk to you, interview you for Yale. So a guy came to my house. I got dressed up, put on a tie just like this one, sat in the living room. My mom was leaning against listening in from the den, I think, and I had a really good conversation with the guy from Yale. He finally asked me, what's your favorite class? What's the one that really turns you on, the one that you really look forward to going to every day? And I said, oh, auto shop. So my mom, I could hear her hit the floor in the other room. So I did not get into Yale. But the truth be told, that interview was not the only reason. There were plenty of others. I did go to college, however, and I graduated 4 years later, though I'm not sure I would have stayed in school had it not been for the student deferment that kept me from being drafted and sent to Vietnam. Because, well, I did not have bone spurs. I had a low number. I was going to go in the first wave. Anyway, when Aldrich called to interview me for his introduction, he asked me what was my greatest accomplishment. I immediately replied, well, my 3 daughters and my 35-year marriage to my wife Murtis, and 2 of my 3 are right here. But of course, it goes without saying, really, that no matter what you do professionally, your friends and family and healthy, supportive, loving relationships are the keys to a good life. So after I hung up the phone with Aldrich, I realized he had been asking about my professional accomplishments, really didn't care about my personal life, and he was too polite to tell me that I had provided a little information to help him with this introduction. So I called him back, and I told him about my work on restructuring the electric utility industry in Illinois and other things I've done that I'm not going to talk about this evening. Anyhow, it does turn out that the seeds of most of the things I've done in the last 50 years were sown right here at ETHS. It's here that I began to use my hands and my mind, develop my worldview and my interests and my passions, which truthfully haven't changed all that much since I graduated from ETHS. It was in art class here that I discovered making things out of clay. My first piece was a giant green hand that had extra knuckles. I don't know why, but I had it for many years until it finally broke. That led me to a passion eventually for making pottery, which I still have. And after college, I decided that I wanted to be a potter. And that led me to co-founding Little Street Art Center, which 45 years later is still going strong, and I'm still an owner of it. And I'm still making pots when my back allows it. And when I was a freshman at ETHS, I bought a guitar from Sears Roebuck on Church Street, across from Marshall Fields there, and today I still love to play guitar every day. And it was here at ETHS in combined studies class that my eyes were open to the complexities and injustices of the world, and where I was inspired to participate in the civil rights and anti-war movements. Much of what has stayed with me from my ETHS experience happened outside the classroom. I remember one episode in late 1968. This was just months after the assassinations of Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy. And it was getting to about this time of year. Students were decorating the senior lounge. And some people painted a soul Santa Claus. Big black Santa Claus with a red hat on the window of the lounge. The next day, I came in and somebody had painted in another window some musical notes and a message that said, "I'm dreaming of a white Christmas." You can imagine the furor that caused, and the kids who did that didn't even know that it was racist. They thought it was funny. That, I think, because of the kind of place ETHS is, that became a teaching moment that everybody learned from, and it led to some interracial conversations that really rarely occurred. Anyway, my activism in college led to my work in some political campaigns, mostly left-wing kind of stuff, while I was also pursuing my passion as a full-time potter. But after about a decade, I decided to try and flip the script and turn the art into an avocation and the activism and advocacy into a career. So I applied for a job at a brand new consumer advocacy organization, the Citizens Utility Board, and I did not get the job. But a few weeks later, somebody there got sick, and they hired me as an administrative temp for a job that was supposed to last a couple of weeks. Well, I loved the work and the mission, and they couldn't get rid of me for 20 years. Now, I'm not sure you can complete that kind of a career path these days, but as I told the kids this morning, you will probably end up doing something rewarding if you follow your passions and work hard, whether it leads you to become an auto mechanic or an artist, a policeman, a lawyer, a soldier, a teacher, a nurse, anything. I spent most of the day here today at ETHS, and I was astonished by the facilities and the programs that were not here in 1969. The auto shop was about the only place that looked familiar to me. And now it's astonishing. There's a manufacturing and engineering center with all sorts of fabrication equipment. The ceramics lab now has at least a dozen potter's wheels and all sorts of equipment. There was nothing like that in my day. There's a huge wellness and fitness center with all sorts of advanced equipment, as good as any health club. There's a textile and fashion design workshop. There's an urban agriculture center, a greenhouse with a fruit orchard over by the football field. There's a computer and robotics center. There's an adventure center with a climbing wall and rope ladders, and then there's across the way is an actual house that is under construction by students, a real house that will become affordable housing when it's done. Aldrich and I spent a half hour, maybe a little bit less than that, at the ETHS Planetarium. What a place. It's an extraordinary place where we watched a video on the hemispheric ceiling like an IMAX theater. We watched this video that was the best explanation I have ever seen on how the Earth's climate system works and why the planet is habitable, why there's life here. It was extraordinary. If I could find it again, I would watch it again. We never finished seeing it, so I don't know how it ends, but anyway, I was mighty impressed by today's ETHS. And not only all that, but the food in the cafeteria did appear to be much improved. We didn't eat it, but I think that the 1969 nutrition services staff would not have won any awards. I don't want to diss anybody, but I think it's a whole lot better. So anyway, what I've decided now is that as I'm very close to retirement, maybe I can enroll in the class of 2025 right here and start all over again. I'm sure I will learn a lot more and appreciate it a lot more than I did the first time around. But one thing that will be different is that I will not be joining the wrestling team. But that's, anyhow, I much appreciate this opportunity to reminisce, to talk about myself, to pontificate a little bit, which I don't get to do very often at home. And I'm truly honored by this award, so thank you all very much.
Marty is a classmate from the class of 1969 and joins several others as distinguished alums, and we are thrilled that that was able to happen today. I should also mention to you that the KIT newsletter will be appearing in your mailbox in the next week or so. We have a great edition coming out. It does highlight our awardees this year, as well as many of the things Marty just mentioned. The editor of the kit is sitting over there, Kathy Mills, and we want to thank her for the great job she does every year in producing it. Our next speaker is Jaden Denlow.
Good evening. I'm Jaden Denlow, and I'm a senior here at ETHS. Today, I'm honored to speak to you about Josephine Allen, an incredible woman. Dr. Allen graduated in 1991 and is currently an associate professor at the University of Florida in the Materials Science and Engineering program. When I spoke to her and learned about the depths of molecular biology and biomedical engineering, I was in awe. She shows us how persistence aids discovery. Much of Dr. Allen's most recognized work is determining the role of vascular cells in cardiovascular disease, which is the #1 killer in the U.S. She has even sent these cells to space in order to benefit the lives of all people on Earth. Not only does Josephine use her findings to create awareness among scientists, but she uses her findings to engage her community. One way she does this is with a Biomaterials Day, which is hosted at a local middle school and serves low-income minority students. Her ultimate goal is to make sure African American students see themselves through her eyes, knowing that they are capable of using science to better their own community. Additionally, Dr. Allen engages her community through mentorship programs. During her graduate school experience at Northwestern, she mentored at Evanston's Chute Middle School. She hopes that her active engagement in bringing science to her community will inspire students, especially underrepresented African American women, to further explore the impact of science in the world. When I spoke to her, she mentioned that ETHS is rich in opportunities. Earlier today at the Senior Assembly, I spread this message. I mentioned that exploring different classes, clubs, sports, and other interests will put the senior class in the best place to succeed in the future. These actions and inspirations from Dr. Allen need to be seen and heard. As the class of 2020 ventures into their next journey, taking risks and seeking to uphold their futures, we can learn from her and our other distinguished alumni. It is my honor to present Josephine Allen. Congratulations.
All right, let me lower this. Okay. Good evening. Good evening. I am thrilled. What a day today was. So much more than I could have expected was going to happen today. Let me first just thank the Alumni Association, the board, for this very, very wonderful honor. I consider it an honor. It's been a real highlight, I think, coming back here to ETHS and spending the day here, talking with students, the campus, walking around. I walked everywhere today. Yeah, it's just been a wonderful, wonderful time, and I'm very, very thankful and humbled by this award. I have many memories being here at ETHS, wonderful memories. I have to say, I didn't realize that the campus and building and facilities were as awesome as they are, but coming back, of course, when you get to see it, you really can appreciate the wainscoting, the chandeliers, you know, I was like the box ceilings, I was like, what, this is awesome. You just didn't appreciate that when you're here as a student, but coming back, I really, really get a chance to appreciate that. I also, for me, there was a real heightened sense of ETHS pride, and that's something that really, really sticks with me, that sense of community here. When Jaden and I spoke the first time, she told me her dad and her dad's brother went here, and as soon as we hung up the phone, I ran and found my yearbook, because, you know, we all know each other, so I assume he graduated around the same block of time, so I had to go dig him up and see if I could find him. He's laughing. Dig him up and see if I could find him. But it's that sense of community that I would even think to go look in my yearbook to see if I know her father and her family. But yeah, that sense of ETHS pride and community really, really sticks with me and stands out in my memory. So one of the other things that I remember here is this is the place where I really became really extroverted, really outgoing. And I think part of that is the organizations and clubs that are offered here. So I picked probably one of the most extroverted clubs, the Pom Pom cheerleading, Pom Pom Squad. And so I joined that and I participated in that while I was here. Just again, back to ETHS pride and things like that. I also participated in some scientific things. I ended up being a scientist. So one that stands out for me is the bridge building contest. Do we still do that? Love that. Love that. So the bridge building I didn't win, but I remember making it to some finals, and somehow there's a floppy disk somewhere at my house with a video of me in this bridge building contest. And when my son, who was in high school at the time, also had a bridge building contest, I was able to share with him some of my knowledge. So aside from extracurricular activities, I have to say that the teachers here really made an impact on my life. I always felt they were professional, they were informed, they were educated, like they knew what they were talking about, and that resonated with me, and it probably contributed to the fact that I knew I wanted to be a person of impact and an educator. So I also had great coaches. I also had a great advisor. And I think in them, what was instilled in me, I didn't realize it at the time, was just this idea of mentorship and really, advocating for your students and looking out for them. So if it's okay, I'd like to share just a few of the benchmarks that got me where I am today. And really my message is focused on encouragement and sort of the cornerstone of why that's so important for students, particularly students of color, as they sort of think about what opportunities are available for them. So I shared a little bit of my journey. I pretty much kept it real with the students this morning and told them about my journey. When I left ETHS, I went to Howard University, and then I evolved over to Southern California, where I got my bachelor's and master's degree. And then it all kind of culminated back here at Northwestern University, where I got my PhD, and I really couldn't have fashioned a better sort of full circle, if you will, coming back. So I received my doctorate at Northwestern. And after doing my postdoc, I ended up going down to the University of Florida. And really, as I was explaining to the students this morning, it took a lot of believing in myself and really some of that foundational stuff that was put in there early on in high school, some of those messages that I had received, really tapping into that to get me through everything that I had to get through. So as a professor at the University of Florida, I educate students. I'm an educator. I also maintain a research program, and as Jaden mentioned, I study cardiovascular disease. I also write grants and write papers and things of that nature. And it's been a pretty successful career. I've achieved about a little over $3 million in research funding for my research program. And one of my greatest achievements is the work that I do with NASA, and that is to recently send a study into space, to the ISS, the International Space Station in space. And I'm the first Black woman engineer to actually send a research project into space. So this is, thank you. So I feel like I've achieved a lot, but it wasn't the easiest journey to get here. And I explained that to the students today, that it wasn't the easiest journey. There were a lot of bumps in the road, hurdles, things to get through, trials, tribulations, and the whole thing. And I kind of gave them students that message, that it isn't always going to be a smooth, straight line to getting to where you're trying to be. And that is certainly the case for me. I wasn't a straight A student. I didn't get it all right when I was in high school, but my advisors always believed in me. I had a really strong support system here. They never sort of told me, "Oh, you're done. You didn't do well in that class. It's done for you. You can't go off to college and do what you want to do." So I really had a sense of encouragement from them. And so now that I am here, I'm a Black woman in engineering. I stand here. I've spent a lot of time researching why are there so few Black women in engineering, and it turns out there's only 0.1% of engineers are Black women. So I get funding to do different outreach things and bring students to my lab, and high school students and middle schools and that kind of thing. So I did some research, and one of the really big contributing factors is that students of color are not encouraged to go down this path. for whatever reason, administrators are sending students of color down different paths. Maybe they didn't do so well in math and kind of that kind of thing. And I reflected on that, and it's crazy because I do the research and I read it, and I'm like, I was a student of color, but that wasn't my reality here at ETHS. That was not my reality. Here at ETHS, I was always encouraged, you can do whatever. Even with bumps in the road and the mediocre grades, there still was this sense of, you can do it, Josie, and just that experience. It's not like that all over the country. There's other schools that they may not have the resources, maybe the teachers aren't trained or the advisors aren't trained, but our students of color are not being encouraged to pursue STEM and engineering, and that just wasn't my reality here. So I'm really proud to say that. I'm proud to acknowledge that ETHS did a fantastic job of encouraging this black female student to go down that path into science, into STEM, into engineering if I want, and that I could be amazing. So I owe a thank you to ETHS for that. So I'm just going to wrap up. I just want to make sure I acknowledge the legacy of ETHS that I come from. My dad's in the back, my mom's in the back, class of the 60s, both of them. My mom's mom went to ETHS, my brother, my sister went to ETHS. We just come from ETHS. So it's just this long line of ETHS alumni in our family, and it's just such great pride to be here. I'm so very humbled for this award and thankful for the recognition of the work that I do. I'm very thankful. Thank you all.
Okay, we are approaching the halfway point, and we'll try to get us out of here still. I think we're actually pretty much on schedule. So our next student presenter is Yasmin Morrow.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Morrow, and I'm here today to present to you a graduate of the class of 1979, Rodney Williams. He has been a wonderful example of the kind of students ETHS produces. Rodney Williams was a scholar student, involved in the debate team and a writer and editor for the Evanstonian. However, that last one didn't last long. See, Rodney was a part of the Evanston newspaper, which meant he had access to an editor's pass that let him leave the school to go do interviews for articles. However, he didn't present his articles in a timely manner and got fired. But he kept the editor's pass, and for the last semester of his senior year, he still used it to leave campus at will. After high school, Rodney received a bachelor's in political science from Amherst College and an MBA in Marketing and Finance from the Kellogg School at Northwestern. One of Rodney's fondest memories growing up was a dream his mom had. In the dream, parents had to line up in order of their child's grades. His mom always hoped that her sons wouldn't have her in the back of the line, which surely he did not, and Rodney went from being a good student to a successful businessman. He remembers Evanston Township High School as a foundation for the real world. He said it's preparatory, academically rigorous, has a solid base, and a diverse community. His experience here was memorable, and he is very grateful for the way ETHS prepared him for society and the business world. His first job after college was at a nonprofit organization called Whole House. They help disadvantaged youth go into the working force. From there, his career grew in business and marketing, and now he is the president of Belvedere Vodka. Belvedere is a branch of the Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy brand, which is the largest luxury brand of spirits in the world. Through his company, he gives back to the community. For example, this is their 8th year working with RED, an international organization which offers services to care for people with HIV. Also, under his leadership, Belvedere has helped cut CO2 emissions by 40% and hopes for that number to grow in the coming years. Without further ado, please help me welcome Mr. Rodney Williams.
Jasmine was great in that introduction because I've never told that story to anyone about the Evanstonian. And when we were preparing, she said, yeah, you know, I just need to hear about your most rebellious moment. And so I told the students earlier today, if the Evanstonian has not signed her up as an investigative reporter, they are missing a gem here. But it's an honor to be here with you this evening, and thank you to Dr. Witherspoon, and of course the Alumni Board and Association, the Selection Committee, for this really terrific honor. What I did today was really experience an ETHS that was very, very different from what I experienced 40 years ago. And, you know, I've had a couple of seminal experiences, I think. Oh, I should warn you, too. I do have a helper speaker, my 21-month-old son, who may at any time command the mic. But, well, you know, just walking around today with the breadth of classes and support programs that exist here, it's almost like a dream. It's almost like a school we would have imagined only that we were attending 40 years ago. I can remember freshman year getting my initial assignments here at ETHS, and I was assigned to all honors classes except for history. And in history, I was assigned to a regular history class. And I went in to see my counselor, and I said, is there a mistake? Because I'm, you know, honors and everything else. And she said, no, this is the recommendation that came from your history teacher at Nichols Middle School. And I said, well, you know, my peers that I'm grown accustomed to are all in honors, so I'd like to switch to honors. And she said, well, go to the class for a couple of days and then come back and let me know if you still feel the same way. So I went, and 2 days, like clockwork, I came back and I said, yeah, I'd like to switch. And she said, are you not learning anything? And I said, no, I can't say that. I'm learning, but I would just like to switch to honors. She said, well, you know, I got to do the paperwork, so come back tomorrow, which was the last day of the week. So I came back the next day, which was a Friday, and she said, I'm really sorry, but it's going to take a while to process this. You'll fall too far behind, so we're not able to switch you. So I went to lunch, and I called my mom. And I feel blessed that I was able to do that. My mom is the first African-American head of the special education programs for the Evanston School District 65, and she's here tonight with us. And so I called her at about 12:10 because she wanted to know the outcome. And about 1 o'clock, I got a note telling me where my honors history class was going to be meeting. And, you know, it's a fun story, and it had a great outcome. I got an A in the honors class. But the lesson learned to me was manyfold. One has to champion oneself and follow your own instincts. But two, because I came from an academic family, I had support that some of my peers who are as talented or more talented than I did not. And it seemed quite unfair. So truth be told, the reason why I lost that Evanstonian editorial position was because another student and I were writing a comprehensive series on race, and we spent so much time collecting so much insight. I mean, it's a very complex subject, but we just didn't publish anything. But so then to fast forward today and to see all of the different labs that were referenced before, the fact that the school actually champions diversity and is still rated among the top 2% of high schools in the country is unbelievable. I mean, it's really a data point, a proof point of why diversity works. And it was heartwarming to see all of this. So I was pressed into free labor in all of the classes that I visited. David is very smooth that way. But it was a real joy to really engage with students who I think are really experiencing an ETHS that will launch them for great success in the years to come. So what I had to share with them was kind of 4 things that I took away over these last 40 years in terms of figuring out what my own sort of passion was, and I hoped maybe some of it would be useful fodder for them. The first is this whole notion of learning agility and really understanding how as individuals and how as a person you process and understand information. For me, I'm a visual learner versus being auditory or kinetic, and I'm an objective versus a subjective thinker. I like facts, I like data. And the data I gave to people, or the example rather, was that when I was hired at Robert Mondavi, I was the first African-American vice president in the American wine industry. And usually they don't hire people at quite such a senior level. So I had lots of homework to do in terms of catching up. And I think second month in the job, I got a call. The Ritz-Carlton in Florida had a big meeting, and they needed me to come out for it. So I got off the plane, and my colleagues met me at the airport, and they basically said, "We are so happy to have a wine executive expert here with us from Napa tomorrow." And I came this close to saying, "Who's here?" So when I realized they were talking about me, I went back to the hotel and I spent all night memorizing 50 pages of vintage notes on every wine we tasted. I knew the viticology, I knew the terroir, I knew the year it was harvested, I knew the weather conditions, and I was describing the flavor profile completely by rote. But it was really effective. Until the very end of the day, an executive who had missed the meetings earlier, I did not tell the students this part, came into the room and said, "Oh, I'd just like to taste these last 5 wines." Well, I had been so nervous. Usually when you taste wine, there's a spittoon and you spit it out. I was drinking. So I literally had to excuse myself to go to the bathroom, go back to my notes, spit out these last 5, and come back out and finish it. But the point of the story really is that students should feel empowered by understanding how they learned, and ETHS made me feel empowered that I could ascertain information and process it quickly because I had such great teachers who really drilled in such discipline over the 4 years. The second of the 4 points is to innovate around your passion. Many people would think that because I've been in the wine and spirits industry since 2003, that wine and spirits is my passion. And it is a passion for sure. But my true passion is problem solving, taking vexing business problems and solving them and building brands. And I could do it as a consultant, but I like doing it in teams where there's a degree of accountability. So I think the lesson there is that you don't really have to work literally in your area of passion. You just have to find a release for it, a way of exercising it and bringing it to the fore. And to get there is not always a linear path. And I did share with them that I had some great experiences here at ETHS. I was the second student named to serve on the youth commission of the Evanston City Council. I was the student director of YAMO, the student council president, and the runner-up in the state oratory competition on the speech team. But I also only ran track for 2 years because we were really rich in talent and I didn't make the cut. And senior year, our team actually won the state championship. And it is true that on the Evanstonian, I was remarkably unproductive as an editor. And so, you know, the lesson learned is you do find your passion out there when you do dig, but you will fail along the way. And that's a great thing to experience. The third or the fourth is just that the diversity at ETHS is a real gift. It's a window into a myriad of subcultures other than your own. And I'm asked, you know, how was it that I was able to lead a successful team in launching OnStar while General Motors, the rest of General Motors was struggling, or how we doubled sales and profits in Hennessy Cognac in a 5-year window, or how now I direct Belvedere Vodka, where the distillery is in Poland, our head of sales is in Germany, our head of brand education is in the UK, and I'm in New York with a French chief financial officer and an American chief marketing officer. And it's because ETHS inculcates an interest in culture. And that has served me so well in being able to work with people from disparate cultures and disparate experiences. And then fourth and finally, the tenet around optimism and being optimistic and staying away from toxic, negative thinkers, I think is incredibly important. I've had the great honor of serving on the board for a long time of an organization called UMEX, the United Movement to End Child Soldiering, and it's based in Kampala, Uganda. And in 2006, I went with the executive director of the organization to Uganda, northern Uganda, where there was a war zone, to deliver 250 kits of books and papers and pens and study guides for students. And when I first saw the itinerary, I did call the executive director and I said, I think there might be a mistake. The war zone is in the north, and this says we're going to the north. But he said, no, don't worry. You know, you'll be escorted. And I worked for 2 days to get a picture of the escort. The escort were children themselves, you know, 14 and 15. So we get there, and there's going to be a big assembly where we're going to hand these things out, and easily 500 kids showed up. So I said to the executive director, this is a disaster. We don't have materials for all of these kids, and so many people are going to walk away disappointed. And he said, just go out and talk to them before it starts. Just talk to some of the kids. So I sauntered out and I mentioned the situation to a young man, and he just turned and said to me, it's okay. If my friends get the materials, that's great. Maybe it'll be my turn the next time. And that level of optimism in the face of just devastation, I still get emotional just thinking about it. But the power of positive thinking is so empowering and so important that our young people here have that and not take it for granted. So with that, I want to thank you for this honor. I want to thank you, Dr. Weatherspoon, and all the faculty members who are here, the board members, the volunteers who give their time for creating such a special place and for finding a way to improve something that was already great in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. I will say that Rodney offered to provide beverages for tonight, but unfortunately, the school board and the school policies and state law have something to do with what we're allowed to serve in the high school. But thank you for your kind offer. And maybe there's some encouragement to people to go sample Belvedere if you haven't up to this point. One of the great parts of this job for me is that we're getting to a point now, one of our criteria for the Distinguished Alumni Award is that somebody be out of school for 10 years. And we're getting to a point that back when I started at ETHS, I was a history teacher. I wasn't doing all of this type of thing that I'm doing now. And I'm getting to the point where I'm now starting to see my students step up and earn the respect and the honor of the Distinguished Alumni Award. So our next awardee is a former history student of mine, and to introduce him, we have Jerome Smith.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to, before I start my speech, I just want to thank you to my two coaches back there, Negus Main and Stacy Rainey, for always singing me out to be in situations like this. Always being that guy on the team who has to speak, not only for situations like this, but just being the man who has to talk for the team. And I also want to thank Mr. Fran for emailing my coaches at 1 o'clock in the middle of the night, asking if I got my speech done. But on that behalf, I just want to say my name is Jerome Smith, student athlete here at Evanston Township High School, and I stand before you today honored and humbled to speak on an individual who has set the standards high for not only myself, but the fellow students who have yet to come. It is time to celebrate greatness. Recognized for being Forbes 30 Under 30, the sports world's brightest young stars, he helped elevate his company, Creative Artist Agency, to be recognized as the world's most valuable sports agency. He is ranked at the number 9 position worldwide, but the number 1 agent in my eyes. He's helped generate over 24 first-round picks, as well as securing over $1 billion in contracts for top clients such as Chris Paul, Paul George, the veteran Dwayne Wade, and everyone's fan favorite, Zion Williamson. His success didn't come easy. He worked his way to the top by being an honor student on and off the basketball court, as he explained to me today. He graduated from highly ranked schools such as Evanston Township High School in '03 and DePaul University, where he accumulated the quality of life communication and originality. Where not only he is an agent for his clients, but also a great friend who has his arms open 24/7, no matter the calls. Before his years of work, his years as an athlete helped him identify with adverse situations, helping him make a deeper connection with his clients on a more personal level. His ongoing services impacts the lives of many students upon his face-to-face interactions, as he commits to always wanting to help strengthen not only other communities, but the Evanston community. He is the definition of black excellence, and for that, he must be celebrated. So without further ado, Austin Brown, who lost in the free throw contest earlier today. Class of 2003, Austin Brown.
That is not true. That's not true. We both missed one free throw, so just to clarify that. And another addition, number 8 agent now, not 9, but I forgive you for that. No, but I really am honored to be here. It's surreal. I remember walking these hallways like it was yesterday. And I'll be short because I am the youngest one up here, so I just don't have that many years as other people. So I should be shorter. But you know, I was trying to think of like the message that I wanted to send to the students, and you know, I was just reminded of looking in the auditorium how diverse the student body here is, and I was trying to explain to them that it's super rare, like it's uncommon. That doesn't happen at a lot of schools, and probably like myself and a lot of my friends who are literally my best friends that I met here who are here today, we didn't realize it at the time, but it's a unique environment, and as you leave Evanston, you become more fond of that. And so you know, it reminded me of sort of how I got into the agent business, and I was explaining to them what it means to be an agent and how you sort of go about doing your day-to-day. And a lot of the questions I got were, well, how do you sign your clients? How do you, you know, develop those relationships? And the best analogy I could come up with was, you know, it's akin to like speed dating, right? So you have to meet somebody very quickly, get them to like you, trust you, and say, I want to be in this relationship with you without really knowing you, right? So that's what recruiting is. And, you know, the story that I'm reminded of is my recruitment of D'Angelo Russell. And so, you know, D'Angelo, prior to my final meeting with him, I had one interaction with him, and it was All-Star break 2015. I had flown from All-Star New Orleans early to get back to East Lansing. Ohio State was playing Michigan State at Michigan State. I was there with one of my clients, Gary Harris, who was a former Michigan State alum, and it was one of those games that was an instant classic, barn burner. Michigan State won on a last-second shot by Denzel Valentine, who ironically is now a client of mine now. And you know, D'Angelo was visibly upset, and I was talking to his dad after the game, and D'Angelo comes out of the locker room, and his dad sort of tries to introduce me, and D'Angelo literally just gives me one look and does that and just walked away. So not a good first impression on my end, but fast forward to the final meeting, and you know, D'Angelo is probably one of the smartest human beings I've ever met. He's so in tune, and he can really sift through what's real and not real in the matter of seconds. And so he's not saying anything. His dad and his two brothers are talking the whole time, and literally it's about a 2-hour meeting. And after the meeting's over, D'Angelo just looks at me and he goes, you know, you remind me of my guy. And I said, well, I hope that's a good thing. And he said, it's not a good thing, it's a great thing. And so, you know, the rest was history. I've been with D'Angelo through 3 teams, one catastrophic knee injury that almost derailed his career, countless, you know, sleepless nights, long phone calls. But my message to them was, you know, Austin Brown from Evanston, Illinois, and D'Angelo Russell from Louisville, Kentucky, 2 people from completely opposite sides, different experiences, different lives, different beliefs, were able to come together on a journey together and get him to what now is an all-star career and a max contract player. And my ability to connect with him and all the other clients that I have all started back here. You know, if you look around this room, I've got my parents here, I've got aunts, uncles, mentors, you know, literally best friends, Stacy, Nikas, Zach, Chris, Doug is not here, but I always want him here because he's one of my best friends. Jeremy, everybody, you know, we all come from different walks of life. We all look differently, but I learned how to relate to other people by being at Evanston. And I went to St. Joan of Arc. I didn't go to Haven, Nichols, or any of those schools from preschool through 8th grade. And I had 11 kids in my graduating class, 5 girls, 1 was my twin sister. So, you know, so imagine going from that to walking into this school. I got lost my first day. I missed, you know, I was late to my first class, but the diversity and the people that I met here really taught me how to relate to people from different walks of life. And I really feel like in an environment that we're in today where people are being persecuted for being different and not being understood, and you know, we have people at the highest powers who don't understand that. It makes me even more proud to be in an environment like this. And so my ability to connect with my clients and have them look at me as not just an agent, but as a brother, as a friend, as a confidant, all come from being able to, again, meet so many diverse people here and really connect. And so it's a really special moment. And like I said, unfortunately, you know, some of my other best friends couldn't be here, but walking these hallways, I was automatically brought back to so many memories. I mean, I've got my high school coach here, Paul Prima, who, you know, always was instilling in us, you know, bigger than basketball, about life. And again, some of those things sort of went over my head at the time, but I find myself calling on those things more and more every day. And one of the things I told the students was, you know, my quote of the day to them was, you know, embrace the journey and embrace your differences. And I think that's really served me well in my time as not only a student, but also as an agent. And, you know, I'd be really remiss to just not talk about how much of an honor like it really is to be up here right now. I mean, I've had the privilege of having some really cool experiences in my career, meeting a lot of different people, traveling all around the world, and the same pride that people have for their former universities that they went to. My dad is an Ohio guy, like through and through. He did not go to Ohio State, but you would have thought they like built him a statue because all he does is talk about Buckeyes. But the same pride that he has for Ohio State, I have more pride for my high school than I do for my college, and that's not a slight on my college. It just goes to show you how important Evanston is. So I'm really honored, I'm really humbled, and again, I just want to thank everybody. And again, I am who I am today because of this high school and people like you, because Evanston is not just a school, but it's a community, and it takes a community to raise people. And so I thank you guys for being my community and helping me be here today. Thank you.
What a night. Thank you all. First of all, I'd like to ask our student speakers to stand up one more time. And could you all give them a round of applause and thank them. One of the great parts of my job is to be able to get to work with a group of students like this every year and to help them get to know. It's okay, Joe. We'll let you stand up in March when you're representing the team up here after bringing back that piece of hardware that we haven't had in 51 years, but there's a challenge there. Also, could you join me in once again congratulating all 7 of our Distinguished Alumni Award winners. We thank you for coming. Our goal was to be done at 8:14, and we are pretty darn close to that. On your way out, there are cookies that are blue and orange that have a big E on them. Make sure you take one home as a memento and a treat for later tonight. We really appreciate you all coming. Have a great evening. Thank you.